my voice is right on the brink. The draft weekend and allergies have got me right to the spot where you guys remember in December when it was excruciating to listen to me on the radio. I could barely talk at all. Like I'm right on the brink of there. And and then you had me shouting about this other stuff. So boy, you guys missed some really good stuff. I got to tell you, I pretty much laid it all out. I don't know if I can bring it the same way that I just did, but let's try. You guys wanted a defensive tackle. The Texans teased you and teased you and teased you. 4 went in straight succession on draft night as Nick Caserio basically said that they were trying to trade up to get one of those guys, and it just wasn't going to work out. So finally today, they take Harris, who is 6'2", 285, undersized, not just in height and weight, but arm length. We'll get to that a little bit later. But just to give you a little taste, some of you watching these highlights for the second time in the last 5 minutes, but this time with my mellifluous voiceover. And then I'll do a full draft thing tomorrow at noon, where I'll have I'll pre-record some stuff so I don't have to tax my voice too much. But let's go with this again. Marcus Harris, as you're going to see, is a guy who, though he's undersized, though he doesn't have great athleticism, he just flat out gets after it. There's a reason he's a 7th round pick. We'll get to that later. But in the run game especially, he really rocks off the ball at times when he can get into a guy and get his hands working and keep the other guy's hands off of him. He's very, very disruptive. He had double-digit TFLs this year, 6 sacks, left defensive tackle right there. Does a really good job scraping down the line with a guy on his back and making that tackle. Right defensive tackle here. You can see can get through and penetrate the line really quickly and has very active hands. There's a lot to like about him, and I can see why D'Amico likes him. And, you know, Nick loves his big school guys. So he's got highlights not just versus Samford, but also versus LSU and Auburn and the like. Even when he doesn't have great position at the beginning, he just keeps going. I'm going to show you some of the problem areas later where even on some of his low lights, he still ends up making the play because he just never quits. Like there's bigger guys that overpower him for a few seconds, but like even here, not in a great position to start the play. He's kind of stuck at the line when everybody else isn't. But the skinny Lamar Jackson takes off and goes down like a sack of potatoes. Watch him across the line here again, just really quick and get skinny when he needs to. So this is him. If what you're into is cocky, but in a good way, and maybe a guy that's got a chip on his shoulder about being a 7th round pick, this is really cool. This was off of AL.com, I think. Him getting the call. He says coach, so I assume he's talking to D'Amico. We don't have the audio of D'Amico on here, but this is really cool. Him getting the call today that he was getting drafted by the Texans.
Hello. Yes, sir. What's up? Man, I love it, man. I'm telling you. Hey, I'm coming to take over from day one, man. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Yes, sir. Yeah, yes, sir. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate it. Yes, sir. I appreciate you, coach. Yes, sir. But Houston, man.
I'm coming to take over. I like that, man. I wish I heard that cocky. God. But like he's gonna. I know what it's like, man. The guy goes to Auburn, plays his ass off, going up against SEC competition. Very, very, very productive, and yet, man, sometimes just between what the scouts want to see out of height, weight, 40 time, he's a 5+ 40 time, which is cool if you're 6'5" or 6'6" like Eric Armstead, but not when you're that height. They want to see something closer to Aaron Donald. Obviously not Aaron Donald, but he just flat out produces. There's times where it gets him into trouble, but where his body size gets him into trouble. But the big thing is, I think he has the strength to overcome it as long as he's got time to develop it and as long as he's in the right system and they use him appropriately. The great thing about the Texans is in this system, they're going to rotate him. He's going to get opportunities to come in situations or against teams or in packages where he's just hitting the gap and going. And not that he can't anchor down when he needs to. It's just he's not as consistent with that yet. But I think he's definitely got the core strength and he's definitely got the right attitude to be able to overcome some of that. It's not like he's 5'11", 228 or something, So he's very, very intriguing. I think if you're going to take a swing on somebody in a late round, this is exactly the kind of guy you want. Yeah, you want like a guy who's got great athleticism but can't play football at all, or you want a guy that plays his ass off in a big conference and produces, but some of those check marks against him, you just don't feel comfortable, like as a scout, that he'll overcome. Give him some time to do it, and maybe he makes the practice squad. Maybe he ends up starting by the end of the year. I could see it going either way with him. If you look at a little bit of, this is, while I was muted earlier on, what I was talking about was the second day of the draft. I mean, I went on that run of defensive tackles where it was a row, it was Johnny Newton, then it was Tavondre Sweat and Fisk, and Nick basically, it sounded like he said they were trying to trade up into that band of players and they just couldn't do it, and he held tight. But if you look at the spider graph here, I mean, like body weight, he's 9th percentile, arm length 13th percentile, and that's really the big thing. The arm length and the wingspan, if you're not offsetting that with a lot of the other stuff, the athleticism, I mean, you go to the broad jump, 34th percentile, vertical jump, 51st percentile. That's what makes guys nervous. But the thing is, like, I think he plays better than all those measurements. Bench press especially. For a short arm guy, for him to be in the 50th percentile for bench press, it surprises me given the way he looked when he was playing. So I think there's a lot more upside than a lot of the measurables would suggest. If we get into some of the negatives or some of the concerns, I'll say, and some of the things he needs to work on, I pulled a few plays, I think like 4 or 5 plays from the Alabama game, and you're going to see here, I think the first one, I hate doing this, man, because everybody's got bad plays, but when you see them in succession, it looks way worse than it is. He gets knocked down here. It happens. He gets back up, tries to get back in on the play. You're going to see that consistently. Like he's never beat on a play. Sometimes in the pass rush, when a stronger, bigger guy can get his hands on him, he can lock him down. And he's kind of stuck right there where you see with those short arms, once a bigger guy has you locked out, it's really hard to do anything. Where he is really good against some of the bigger guys is he'll bait him sometimes, and a guy will try to maul him, and that's when he's really good at using his hands to get the guy off of him and dust him. It's just he's got to win that at the onset. And he's going to have to be a Tasmanian devil. John Randall's the ultimate example of a guy that was shorter, not as heavy, but just was nonstop movement and ended up with an arsenal of moves that allowed him to get away with that. That's probably a teach. D'Amico loves teach tapes. He loves to show guys, various players to try to emulate, and D'Amico will have that for him. Right here again, just kind of locked down in the pass rush. These aren't awful by any means, but it's also, not necessarily the kind of stuff for the guys that would go in the first or second round would have as consistently. This is all just in the first quarter. This one, it wasn't even that bad because he was stunting away, but he was getting blocked by a tight end. This one's, I think, a really good example. I think it's the last of the subpar plays where he's getting beat, bigger guy. Oh, you let your guard down, big fella. We would have loved him to make the tackle, but still. One last really good one to go off of, right defensive tackle here. Just, again, can be really slippery when he needs to be. This is the key thing about being a shorter guy. Like, you got to turn your weakness into a strength. You got to use that natural leverage. When you're getting beat, they say you're short. When you're winning with it, they say it's natural leverage. He has that ability. He just needs to learn how to do it a little bit more consistently, and that comes with reps and that comes with good coaching. He's had good coaching, but I think there's stuff to build on here. The only problem is that some of the stuff that that he does right now, when it doesn't work, he's just kind of out for the count. And if he's with an offensive lineman that's not going to quit, not going to get duped into it, then he's kind of lost for that down. So as a 7th round pick goes, very, very happy with this. And I genuinely apologize to you guys. I would love to have audio for the first 5 minutes of the video, and B, I would love to answer a boatload of questions right here, but I gotta go to bed. We'll go as long as we can without risking my my Monday actual. Okay, I'll do like 3 questions. I can't help you. Oh, I cannot quit you guys. All right, let's see. And as far as all the questions about the other players, again, I'm going to do those tomorrow. Plus, I want to be able to study some of the guys from the later rounds that I just that I haven't been able to get to. He'll be able to compete. Yeah, Spider Graph doesn't show the true playmaker he is. I think that's one thing that you're starting to see more and more of, not just with Nick, but with other GMs, is that the GPS data or the body tracking data that they have, allowing guys to just rely on their gut a little bit more. That just because somebody, the classic example would be Jerry Rice with his 4.740 or whatever he ran back in the day. I would love to see what his GPS data was compared to his 40 time. I think there are a lot more instances now where they can reject some of the athleticism. So I think it's probably maybe some of the negative plays more so than even the 40 time or anything like that. The arm length, people get concerned about arm length, and that's real. Some guy like Aiden Hutchinson has short arms. It doesn't seem to be bothering him. If you like anything else, like Altuve being short, as long as you got ways to overcome it, Drew Brees being short, as long as you figure out what you can do differently because of your height and actually turn it into an asset. Altuve is a great example, actually. I'll go with the Altuve route. He can get it, man. He can get around. He's got those short little arms, which means he can get around really, really quickly. He's got a smaller strike zone. All these things that are perceived weaknesses, he turns into a strength. Drew Brees couldn't really turn his height into a strength, but it did force him to get just immaculate with his mechanics. Throw off his tippy toes with his head craned back, the timing, the rhythm, all of that stuff. Defensive linemen are the same way. That's why there's way more 6'1" defensive tackles than I think people would think, just based on what the prototype is. But those guys just really make it work because they have good natural leverage. I know. I'm soft. I got soft. Harris is undersized, but get the job done. Yeah, I'm more excited than very like almost all 7th round picks about him. I think the pedigree from a school like Auburn, going against the competition that he did, and showing some of that strength, athleticism that really doesn't show up in the testing. Some guys are just gamers. Some guys just know how to flip the switch. And I think if he can overcome some of those issues that create the negative plays, I think he's just going to be fine. So if you watch the first 5 minutes with no sound at all, and you stayed through and you haven't subscribed, I don't know what your standards are, because my God, that was awful. That was just disgusting. So subscribe if you're here and you actually made it through those first 5 minutes with no sound. It happens about 1 every 10 videos, or 1 every 10 live streams. I go on and on and on with no sound. Noon tomorrow. I'll answer your questions about linebackers, running backs, cornerbacks, safeties who used to be cornerbacks who used to be safeties, all that stuff. I'll do it tomorrow. I got to get some sleep. Thanks, everybody.